Hello, this is the importance of intrinsic motivation in organizations. My name is Caleb Funderburk. This is for Dr. Kevin Rawls in Strategic Communication, Organ 622, Organizational Communication Theory and Practice. In this paper, we highlighted the importance of motivating employees for increased job satisfaction and reduced turnover rates. So trying to figure out how we can increase and decrease those two things to have a successful organization. We do define extrinsic and intrinsic motivations, and then we further dive into the complexity of intrinsic motivation. In the literature review, we defined extrinsic motivation as behaviors driven by externally imposed rewards and punishments, and as a form of motivation typically experienced as controlled and non-autonomous. So extrinsic means the rewards and the motivation is coming from outside, whereas intrinsic is coming from within. So the definition for that is originating or operating from within, belonging naturally, essentially, or immanent. Now, the historical focus on motivation was more on extrinsic needs. They thought that money would be able to motivate people. That is historically what was thought to be the main motivator, and that's all that people needed for their jobs. And then there's been a contemporary shift to intrinsic motivation, trying to figure out what that looks like, what that motivation is, and where that comes from. Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of says that if we can cover the basics needs of humans, then they'll be happy. But in order to get that extra motivation, that extra oomph, if you will, the motivation needs to be intrinsic. So money can only motivate people so far. Now, the theory we used was self-determination theory. It was coined by a psychologist, Edward Deci, PhD, and Richard Ryan, PhD. Um, so they developed this theory um, on how somebody determines the self in their work, and then they said that three things: autonomy. They want autonomy, which is freedom in one's job. They don't want to be told every single thing to do. They want to have some freedom to innovate, to create. Competence. They want to be able to engage successfully in their task. So if they have freedom in their job and they're trained well in their job, they're saying that will intrinsically motivate. If I have self-efficacy and believe that I can do the job that I'm doing, then I will do it at a higher level. And then relatedness. We are social beings, and so we need that social connection and those meaningful relationships in the jobs that we do. So my hypothesis going into this is that intrinsic factors will increase job performance through innovation, creativity, and autonomy. So as you give people more freedom in their job, um, they kind of build more of a stake in their job. It's more of like what they want to do. They kind of take ownership of it because when you create something, it is yours. So in your job, if you boost creativity, then whatever you're doing becomes yours, and it's kind of almost like your child. You love it even more so. The methodology we used, I used in this lecture or in this paper, was a literature review that we used 15 sources ranging from dates of 2017 to 2023. We focused on scholarly articles, peer-reviewed journals, and of course our textbook for the class. Um, and then I used ethical considerations by properly citing my sources and using academic integrity throughout. So the kind of the results of this is that addressing basic needs, including fair compensation, is foundational for intrinsic motivation. Again, if as long as everything basic is taken care of, I'm making enough money that I don't have to worry. I can pay my bills, I have a roof, I have food. Then that's whenever I can bring in the intrinsic motivation. But all of that that's the extrinsic that needs to be taken care of. There's a positive correlation found between organizational commitment and intrinsic motivation, kind of like I was talking about. You become more committed to the organization whenever you have that intrinsic motivation because you feel like it's more yours. And then so Self-determination theory provides a framework of how we understand and promote that intrinsic motivation. So for further research, I do recommend using a mixed method approach with both qualitative and quantitative data, because this again was only a literature review, but I think it would be really good to go in and to get qualitative data through employee interviews, some surveys, and things like that, speaking one-on-one, see what intrinsically motivates them, and then take quantitative data through performance reports to see, okay, this is what they say they want, this is what say to motivate them, but does it actually produce more? And then just figuring out different job types and tasks and see if there is a difference in what my job is on whether extrinsic or intrinsic does play a part in that. Whether it's a hands-on job that is kind of straightforward, is that better extrinsically? And if my job is more creative, more free-flowing, then is it more intrinsic motivator? So as far as the biblical perspective goes, I say the first part of it is that our basic needs, our extrinsic motivation is already taken care of. Our basic needs are taken care of. The Bible tells us, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. So lay up your treasures in heaven. So like money, gold, stuff is extrinsic that can motivate me, but if it motivates me, like one day that stuff I can lose. But it says use, lay up your treasures in heaven where I can't lose that. And then again, later in the chapter, we're reminded that God takes care of the birds, He takes care of the flowers. So how much more will He take care of us, His children? So it's kind of like your extrinsic motivation is done, it's taken care of. God's got you there. So our intrinsic motivation, I love this verse by Paul. He says, "I'll become uh, to all people. I'll become um, all things in order that I might win some." He's not motivated by money or anything like that, or status. He's willing to change his identity as long as he's staying within that biblical perspective. But he's willing to change the things that don't really matter in order to relate to others, and again be through his love for God, through his want to see others. He's intrinsically motivated to to change and adapt in a way that can hopefully spread the gospel to others. And then here's a couple of my references as well, and I hope that you have learned through this presentation. Thank you. Bye.